Hey guys, welcome back. We're going to add some more details to this jacket now, so let's go right ahead. The first thing we're going to do is select these two pocket flaps here on the side, right and click on them and click Layer Clone Over and add a second layer to these pocket flaps. As traditionally you would construct it with 2 layers if you were going to stitch this jacket. What we can do as well is pin these shut. So if I go to the left side here, I have this tack tool that looks like a piece of fabric with a pin through it. Choose the tack. Choose this internal line corner here and choose the same kind of point on your jacket. And this should now pin these together. So I'm going to choose this one here and this corner about here. And you see that this tack line is now here. So if I simulate, these should now connect. They should pull them together and they should now be sitting one on top of the other. For the thickness of these pockets, they're not very thick right now, so I can select these 2 pieces and these 2 pieces. On the right side, scroll down, additional thickness collision, set this to 3, and for rendering, set this to 3 as well. And if we then look back at these pattern pieces, we should have some more thickness applied to them. I think maybe 3 is too much. So let's do 2 and 2. Yep. I'm going to also, with them selected, right click and click strengthen, and this should kind of straighten them out a bit. And I think now that they're in a good position, I can actually delete these pins. So to delete the tack, choose this pin, the edit tack button here, and just click these purple lines that have been created and click delete. And now our pocket flaps are kind of sitting on top where they should be. Okay. We'll select all the pocket flaps. Again, right click, click unstrengthen so that they go back to normal. And then the top 2 pieces, I'm just going to go down the side into the property editor. Under Bond Skive, drop this menu down and choose Bond. And this will add essentially like an interfacing or a fusible. So if you're familiar with that from sewing, that will stiffen up this pocket flap to make it a bit thicker when it's being simulated. For this piece in the front here, we can just select this and add an additional rendering to 2.5 so that the collision and the rendering are equal. And this should look a bit thicker now. And then to add just a bit more wrinkle and surface into this jacket, I'm going to choose the front and the back kind of partitioning pieces, like all these pieces that construct the body. And under shrinkage warp and shrinkage weft, for both of these, I'm going to turn them to 105 to just make them a little bit bigger. And they should then kind of wrinkle across on the top of the other fabrics and give us a bit more surface detail. This looks quite intense, so I'm going to go back, select the pieces again, the under pieces as well, and turn it to 102. Let's try that. Simulate, yeah, let's show 103. 103. Yeah, so we see now we get a little bit of extra kind of buckling and movement in this fabric compared to how it was before. I think for these front pieces, I'll do 102. So it gives us a bit more detail in the fabric in the back. This acetate lining is jumping around a lot, so I'm going to change this preset to cotton poplin, and hopefully we won't see it jumping throughout pattern anymore. Yeah. So this is how presets can help kind of calm down any collisions. If you saw that little piece of lining jumping through there, I changed the preset and now we're good. So that's added some more details to the fabric and the surface. Next, we can add the top stitching. So the places I want to add this are actually in the center front next to the zip and in these seams here in the front and the back. So I'm going to select all these edges for the back edges, the front edges, right click, offset as internal line and set this to 0.5 and click OK. And now we've got some additional edges here as well. with these still selected, if we change the fold angle and bring this angle down and turn on fold rendering, check this box, we can kind of push these lines in a bit as if they would be when they've been top stitched. So when we simulate, you zoom in on these lines. Okay, they're going, if we push the fold angle not down but up, so past 180 to 200 and something, they should push inwards. So again, we can control the strength of this. Now, if I go to the left side here and look under 3D garment display, and I turn off my show internal lines, I should still be able to see a little crease that's happened down these seam edges because of this folding. So these lines are coming from stitching, but these lines are coming from folding. So this is adding a bit of dimension to the folds. And then we can add top stitching onto all of this now. So let's go to the right side here and choose this top stitching tool. So this is segment top stitch. Go to default top stitch, choose our default stitch, come down on the side and turn from OBJ to texture. I'll explain why later, but for now turn it from OBJ to texture. Offset, set to 0. And then for the color, let's put it to quite dark, almost black for now, so we can see it. With this now selected, with top stitching segment top stitch selected, go around and just click on your internal lines where you want to see top stitching. If you zoom in, you'll see it, and it's really, really, really thin. So go back to default top stitch, scroll down from the property editor, and look for thread thickness. And this unit is called text, which is a thickness of thread. But if you drop down text and turn this to millimeters, we could put 1 millimeter as this value, and now we have a thicker stitch. Stitches per inch SPI is how many stitches there are in inch. So if you put this lower to 7, my stitches are now long and thick and much more visible. I want to do this everywhere I have top stitching. So in the front edges, in the shoulder seam, all around my pocket flaps, on both flaps, we want to see this top stitching. On this side too. We want to do it in the armhole of the jacket, the top here, this armhole here, just clicking on each of these little segments of internal line. I don't want that to have top stitching. These construction lines we've created before to like look at the armhole drop, we can just delete now. We don't need them anymore. So they're no longer visible. And that should be, I think, fine for now. Maybe we put a top stitch here. So if I offset this as an internal line, and then I apply stitching to the sleeve as well. That looks good. And the same on the back. So I take this piece, these two segments, offset as internal line. Okay, back to the stitching property here, and then just add some top stitching there. And we can do the same to the back. So if we zoom in now, we can see where we've added all this top stitching to the jacket, and it's looking pretty nice. The last place will be here, around this pocket edge. And as you see, this is being symmetrically edited. So if I choose these two front pieces and I right click and click remove linked editing, they will no longer update each other. So I can choose one side, delete these now, and my pocket is only visible on one side. So when your pattern pieces become asymmetric, you can remove the editing in order to fix that. Okay, so that's now the top stitching added. We can add some buttons to these pocket flaps now. So if I go to the button tool on the left side, click the button, and then quite simply just click about here where you want your button to appear, and you'll see on the pattern on my 3D garment, a button has appeared. This is not the button I want, but this is a button nonetheless. To change the button, go to the property editor on the side. In the object browser, choose your button. Close, going to load the buttons. Then under shape here, you see like a classic button shape. Drop this menu down and just choose what you want. So I kind of want something that looks like a snap. So like this one, maybe. And if I kind of zoom in, I can see that it's a shank button, but I can make it look like a snap if I reduce the size. So select your button. Go back to your object browser here. So choose the button in the object browser. This is our default. The size of this button, the width here is set to 2. So if I set this to 1.5 and I set the fabric to metal and I set the roughness, the reflection comes down a bit, the roughness comes up. We have like a nice metal button here. Change the color, make it darker. Metallic snap buttons added. If you want to bring these a bit further in, you can just drag them in 3D space and just push them in. But when you simulate, they might pop back out a little bit. Yeah, see they're jumping around. But now we have zip tape in the front and metal buttons on these pockets, so we've kind of nearly got all the details there. The next thing we want to add is the fabric details for the rib trim and the base shell of this jacket. So the first fabric I'm going to add some detail is the rib 2x2 here. So choose fabric in the property editor, choose your double click the 2x2 rib. This has been added to your object browser, and now I have the rib here. So if I select all my rib pieces, I can select them in 2D or 3D space, doesn't matter. And then I drag my new rib fabric onto this. Zoom in and see that we have like a classic rib detail here. I'm going to increase the intensity of this normal map a bit just to see a little bit stronger this definition. And we can change the transformation of this by using this tool we had before, the Edit Texture 2D. And I can make this using the diagonal line in the gizmo. I can drag this up to make the rib look thicker and heavier. The next one we want to add is a normal map just as a detail. So for the jacket, I can just add this normal map that looks like a twill fabric into this inkflow. So if I want to add my own normal map, go to the normal map setting of our fabric. So this one is called self. I'm going to choose self. Under normal map, click these 4 buttons here, this little square. Navigate to where your normal map is saved. Open your normal map. And then if you zoom in now on the fabric, you should see this very fine normal map up here. I can increase the intensity of this here. And again, I can transform this using the tool we used before, the 2D transform. Actually, no, I can't. I need to go into self, and then the transformation is under normal map here. So if I go to transform and I increase this number from 8.6 to say 12, my grain will get bigger. So if I go to 20, I now have a much bigger twill kind of grain on this fabric. And I'm going to set the same twill to the fabric underneath. So I'm going to go to self copy and go to normal map, choose the same one. And for the transformation, set this transformation width here to 15. Aspect ratio is locked, so it should change both axes to 15. So as well, up the intensity. This fabric, I think we can make it, if we go from fabric matte to like fabric silk, and then in the bottom, we bring the roughness down a little bit, let's say. We can make this as like a shiny fabric under the arms, and then the rest of the fabric is more of a matte fabric. Yeah, I think this is added enough detail for now. We could get this ready to export for other programs if we finalize our pose. So to finalize the pose, I'm just gonna go to my folder where I have my avatar saved. I just drag in my posed avatar that I brought from DAZ or whatever other program you want. Click Save As, and I'll call this pattern 5. And then when the import obj comes up, turn load type to add, object type to morph target, morphing frame count to 30. And as long as you have the same geometry in each of the poses, you should have no problem. And then just let this simulate from one to the other. So this should change now into our pose. So this is now posed. I'm going to continue the simulation for a second just to straighten up the jacket a little bit. But I think this is looking good. I'm going to press Shift and A to turn off the avatar view and then just look at the jacket in as it is right now. Next thing will be to add a zip puller, so we can do this using the hardware and trim on the left side. So if we go to hardware and trim, go down to zipper, and first thing we need is a slider we'll use the UV texture maps. There we go. We'll go to slider, so choose slider and then go into the OBJ and drag and drop based on the image you like here. So I'm going to go for 5, OBJ 5, and just drag this into the scene. Click add, and then choose trim as the object type and click OK. And this should load into the scene. So this is added to the scene, and if we scroll to the ground, we see that this is added right in the middle of the kind of the 0 point here. So that gives us a slider, and we need now a puller. So go back to the left side, click this folder to go back again, go to puller, look for one you like. I'm going to go with 14 here. Go to OBJ, puller 14, drag this in. I don't need to save it again. Just click add, turn this add type to trim, the object type, and then click OK. And the same should happen again. So looking at the bottom now, I have a puller which is here and a slider which is here. So I can just quickly like put the puller in the slider like this. Just line this up. Then shift and select the other one, and then can I not put them at the same time? No. Okay, select one at a time, which seems bizarre, but let's go. And then we can change the dimensions. So for this one, if I click here, so to rescale this to the correct dimension, we can move one piece at a time. With this selected with the gizmo, choose this square icon here, and it will turn the gizmo into this scaling axes. And if you drag these down in the directions, you can scale this as you need. I think you can drag here and scale in a uniform way from the center. So scale this really small and just drag this where it needs to go. I think a little bit smaller. And then if you click back onto this, you can go back into the gizmo view by clicking this again, or you can use this to glue the trim to the pattern. So if I choose a point here on the top and I click the glue, and then I click on the garment, it should stick it to the garment. So I'm just going to turn this up. And now the slider is just about in position. And then we're going to do the same with the puller. So take the puller, move this all the way up, bring it just in front, click, rotate, scale this down, 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 down. And then connect this puller, just put it into the position right next to the slider, like that. Maybe we can make this a little bit bigger. Just drop this down. So now we have the zipper and the puller all together. We want to prep this ready to go into other programs now, so we just want to check a few last things. I'm going to hide the avatar again. First thing is I'm going to go to the cuffs, and what will be useful for here is if we straighten up these connecting seams. So there's these seams like in the side of our cuffs, and we want to straighten them all off. Okay, delete any curve points within this. And again here, straighten this up. Click and press delete on the curve points. Straighten this one up. Click and delete. And we are going to join them at this point underneath. And I'm going to use the grain line again here. It's an angle now, but if I use the 2D transform, I can just straighten up the direction of this rib. And then I can just make these a little bit smaller so that they pull a bit harder around the hand. Simulating again. Yeah, that looks good for them. The rib. If you look when we simulate, we've had some issues with the zip, so I'm just going to undo. I'm going to turn off this glue. So if I just sit this right here, unglue. If I right click and select unglue, and I just freeze my zip tapes, I think when this simulates now, the zip should be fine. This isn't moving out of the way, and we've made our like adjustment to the front patterns here. I'm just gonna unfreeze this for a second, strengthen it up, and then simulate one more time just to take this kink out the front of the zip here. So this is really nice and straight at the front. I'm going to connect these two zip pieces to these two, so we have one nice long pattern piece. To do that, just line them up, go to the pattern editor tool, choose the top section and the bottom section, right click and merge, and they should merge together. I think I've done them backwards. Yes, I have. So just make sure you're doing them the right way around. Right click, merge. Yeah. And now if I strengthen these two pieces, we've got some top stitching missing. This piece and this piece also need some top stitching, so select the inside edges, offset as internal line, 5mm, choose the top stitch tool, and click on these lines. For this piece, I'm going to add in some additional thickness into the rendering, and I'm going to scroll up and I'm going to turn on double-sided so that it looks like there's two pieces on top of each other, like you see here. And I'm going to turn the curvature way down so that I get a really sharp stacked edge on this pattern, like that. The zips we could thicken up a bit as well. We add 2 into the thickness here, and again bring the curvature down so that the curvature of this thick edge here in the property editor is reduced. And for the rib, this fabric is set to a thickness of 2mm. I'm just 1.4. I'm going to increase this to 2. And just for the cuffs, I'm going to add another 2 into the rendering. I'll do the same for the waistband actually. Into rendering thickness here on the right side, click 2. And the rib is going to look a lot thicker now. Same for the neck pieces, add 2 here. The collar looks a little bit collapsed now in the front, even with the, if I resimulate this, even with the rib. What we could do is choose the steam, the iron tool here, and just steam a little bit this edge here, and then just resimulate. Didn't really help this time, so I'm going to go back with undo, and I'm just going to choose this front line here and change this to 92, the elasticity of this front part from here to here, and resimulate that. And that's just straightened out this little crease in the collar right there. So this is looking good now. I think we can start to reduce the particle distance soon, but I'm just going to take out these center back seams. So on this piece and this piece, we have a center back seam. And on this piece we do. And also on these two rib pieces. So first things first, the jacket, select this back seam and this back seam and right click, choose merge. And then on the collar, we do the same, merge. And on this back seam on the waistband and this back seam, we also click merge. So now if we resimulate, this visible seam we had in the back should now be gone. If when you simulate, you get this happening where the freezing happens, just select everything, right and click, choose freeze, simulate with everything frozen. So nothing's moving because it's frozen. Stop the simulation. Select everything again, right click, unfreeze, and simulate one more time. And everything should just kind of put back where it needs to be. So now the back seam is gone. We only have the seams that we've kind of designed in the jacket. This self fabric, I'm just going to make a little bit shinier. Bring the roughness down and the reflection up. And now we have almost all of the details done. The last one will be to add the zip pattern to the teeth so that it looks like a zipper. So like a zip teeth image texture basically. So I'm just going to pull this zip to try and straighten it up a little bit. That's good like that. And then just stop the simulation when it straightens up. So about here. I'm going to unstrengthen these pieces. What we usually have with a zipper, if I look at the pattern pieces, I'm going to select the bottom 2 points and I'm going to select the top 2 points and right click and offset them as internal lines. Click OK. And then right and click cut and sew. And what that's going to do is if I copy this zip material and I call it zip end and I make it a little bit thicker with the thickness value, that will give us these kind of end stoppers on the zip. And if I then use the zip copy fabric and I make this, white for now, let's say, and just add that to the zip pieces, we now have these kind of little connectors on the end, which looks more like a real zip. I'll add in the zip textures now. So for the zips, I've got like some base textures of the zip teeth, the metallic height maps and normal maps. So I'm going to load these into CLO. So I'll take the file path from where these are saved, go into my zip fabric, and then let's start with texture. Choose these 4 dots here, navigate to my folder and choose GA zip for the zip teeth, and we'll see like some teeth being projected. I'm just going to add the rest of the map. So normal map, I think, for now, just this normal map is going to be fine. I'm going to increase the intensity of it a bit so we see it a little more. And then I'm just going to zoom in here, and with the 2D edit tool selected, just the 2D pattern edit, increase the thickness of these teeth quite significantly, and then just drag these two to the front edges and make them connect like 2 zips. And now we have something that looks quite a lot like a zip. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. A really heavy gauge zip going on here. Just offset those teeth slightly. So now, yeah, we have a zip running down the front. We have 2 little end stops on this zip as well. We have 2 end stops on the top, and we have a zip puller. We have a front pocket here. We have 2 side pockets. This is now ready to, I'm going to save, and then we're going to reduce the particle distance and simulate one more time to get a really nice finish for the final renders. So zoom out, select just your shell, the shell of your jacket, so not the rib, just the arms and the body. And these 2 squares here could be done as well. And change this, go down to 6 in particle distance on the side. Let CLO load that for you. Then when the particle distance has changed, one more time, click simulate. So I'm going to hit spacebar and just get a little bit more definition in those wrinkles here. And now that I'm almost done, I'm just going to change the simulation type to fitting and just see if this helps get a more accurate simulation. Again, this will be more intensive on processing, but it should get a more accurate look. Turn the simulation off. One last thing we can look at doing is if I select all the sleeve pieces for the external parts of the sleeves, and I go down to pressure and I put three. Let's start with 3 in the pressure. We can see about pushing these sleeves out a bit. For the sleeve, go to the sewing machine, choose this. Actually, choose this internal line and just delete it because we don't need it. Neither do we need this one that goes under the arm either. All these construction lines could go. And then simulate one more time. When we've added that pressure, it should make these sleeve pattern pieces puff out a bit, kind of like a puffer jacket, so that there's a bit more volume underneath them. So this has worked a little bit, I think, with these two pieces. The top sleeves, we can turn the pressure up even more to 5 and just simulate this one more time. So if you look now, the pieces are starting to inflate a bit, and they look a bit thicker and a bit heavier, which is quite nice. So this looks pretty much done. I think for the front, I really want to straighten this zip up, so I'm just going to strengthen these pieces. Turn this back to normal for the fitting mode, and I'm going to freeze the sleeves. So the sleeves, I don't want to move anymore. I'm going to select all the sleeve layers, all the sleeve pieces, including these, and right click, choose freeze, and freeze the lining. So we just see that these two pattern pieces in the back of the lining have become disconnected because we deleted the sewing in the top. We removed the seam, so I'm just going to restitch these two lining pieces in the center back here. So this piece here and this piece here to the center back. And then just resimulate this one more time. The front of this jacket to really straighten up. So when we get this zip nice and straight, we're going to freeze it in the position that it's in. That looks about straight there. A little bit. Okay, nice straight zip front here. So choose these zip panels, freeze those up, and then unstrengthen these and let those just simulate back down again. I think this self fabric, I'm going to change the preset to nylon featherweight and unfreeze everything. Just see how this starts to look. I think the shrinkage is not helping here, so I'm going to put this down to 101. Freeze the sleeves again. So here I just changed the shrinkage warp and shrinkage ref to 101 instead of 102. And I'm just going to simulate this one more time to reduce that fullness. Yeah, that's better. And this is looking just about finished now. So if I select everything and I unfreeze this, our jacket is now ready to go into other software. The last thing to look at is the UV editor. And the basic principle of this is I want to select everything. No, just right click, click reset to UV to 2D arrangement. So it looks like the 2D arrangement we had. Select all your pieces. See how they fit, and then you can use these auto move UV and UV arrangement tool to arrange these into UV tiles. What I would say though is you really want to keep all the lining pieces in one tile, and then you want to keep all of this fabric, so the main body fabric, in one, which is this, and then all of these silver pieces want to be grouped together as well. And then finally the ribs and the trims can all be grouped together. And we're going to do this in a way that keeps the scaling of each material, okay? So I'm going to do this and I'll show you when it's finished. So as a really quick explanation of this as the UVs, these are the 3 UV tiles that we're going to work with in other softwares or however we want to texture this. All the fabrics are scaled within themselves. So this rib fabric can be whatever scale it wants as long as all the rib pieces stay the same scale. So we can increase the resolution here. These other pieces all as the same material, so they're staying the same scale, the same here. The same for the zip. I've actually cut the zip into 2 little panels. So you see here, this is one piece at the top and one at the bottom in order to maximize the resolution of the zip and the hardware. And then all the lining pieces are fitting into one piece on the back. So just be aware of the direction of the fabrics and that the scaling should be the same for each of the materials, and you're good to go. This is now ready to take into Substance Paint or into Blender to texture or to render out in the end. So I hope you guys found this useful. Let me know in the comments if you have questions. And yeah, I'll look forward to the next series.